Welcome to that episode of Just More Fix. This is James. With me in this episode is Lacey.
Hey.
You can find us online at justmorefix.com or on Twitter at justmorefix. If you like us, you can support us at Patreon, and you can give us a rating and review at iTunes or wherever you find us at. In this episode, we're going to talk about taking Plus One forward into 2020 again. And now, it's time to get our gaming fix.
I'm Willie D. Nelson from All Things Good and Nerdy, a pop culture podcast, part of the Gonna Geek Network. Just like the show you're checking out now. Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other tantalizingly geeky shows at GonnaGeekNetwork.com.
Welcome to Just More Fix. I don't think we have any announcements today. It's a brand new year. New year, new us, new...
Negative.
New games, new podcast.
New year, no announcements.
Okay, right on. All right, so we're just going to jump into this today. So this will be our first episode of the year. So we're going to recap some of our goals from last year and talk about how good or not good we did or did not do. And then we're going to talk about some things that we want to try and do, both in gaming at our own table and then with the podcast and just some other larger things. So
you already looked at all of them, right?
I wrote them down as I listened to the episode today. So
I feel like you should have to give a prediction before you look at them. Like how well do you think you did?
Me or us combined?
Like just you.
I would say that I accomplished 60% of my goals.
Optimistic.
I was going to say 70, but I thought that was a little too optimistic. So what about you?
0. I'm pretty sure I didn't accomplish
That's not true. All right. So first
Agree to disagree.
First on our list from last year was V5 because it was brand new and out there, and we did play some V5. I ran a game, and Carrie ran a couple games. Mm-hmm. So that's one that is a check mark.
Hot Spring, another game.
True. Hot Springs Island.
Oh no, we're doing that.
Another check mark. So that's a yes.
Yeah.
Beast of Jebu.
I finished that out with the PC that I had done. Left the island. Boom, shakalaka.
Beast of Jevudan.
I mean, I ran that game.
That's a check mark.
I made that game.
Correct.
I didn't make it into a zine. Was that part of the goal?
No. It wasn't. That wasn't part of the thing at that point. So it was just talking about. Right. See, I told you. Night Witches.
We did some of that.
Right.
We're going to do some more of that.
True.
Doubles in February.
Correct.
Whoop, whoop. Maybe triples if we play our cards right. We got a 2 for night and then one later on in the month, like 4 weeks later. So,
really?
Yeah, I mean.
That's a lot. Okay.
Surprise!
That's a lot. Okay. That game takes a lot.
We're having a 48-hour.
Are we really?
Yeah, we're having an overnight. For real. Everybody's coming on February 7th and staying until February 8th. So get some content ready, sir. We made plans.
Man.
You were in the message. You commented and everything.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. Along with that, Carrie had mentioned at one point when we were playing Night Witches or afterwards or something during a debrief or whatever about how since I've been running that game, my female characters that are in my games have changed. And so I hope that is still true. I don't know that it is. As I listened to it, I thought, I wonder if I've slipped into some old bad habits or whatever. Do you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Where things are just a little more flat. Because she said the female characters that were in my games just seemed more well-rounded, more full, more real. And that kind of came into play in the Witches game is actually where I think she told me about it. So hopefully I will keep doing that. I don't know. Maybe I just have to have a refresher of Night Witches to sort of keep that, keep me in that zone or whatever.
Fresh.
Yeah. The Ward.
Was that one of my goals?
Yes, it was. Yes,
I ran that.
Yes, you did.
Wait. Oh, it was on New Year's Eve night. So it was even before the year turned. Boom.
So, yeah. Yep.
I ran it last year and this year.
Did you run it? Oh, yeah. Okay, I guess you did. Yeah. So I listened to that, and even in that episode, I talked about how I wasn't sure about that game. And then I listened to how we talked about MASH and stuff and how, I don't know. I think I need to approach that game slightly differently, maybe. I don't know. I'm not.
Like, I need to approach it differently?
No, me.
Oh, okay.
How I approach it. I don't know.
It's like, how dare you, sir? I will run the game how I want to run the game.
No. Just for me to have more fun with it or whatever.
It's just weird that, like, it's different for a one-shot, right? which I think we kind of talked about with MASH too, but the relationships just aren't quite as fleshed out in just that one quick thing as it could be. Because I really think this is designed to play more. It's like a medical
like an ongoing season. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I agree. I think it needs some more playbooks and more like a wider range of characters besides physician and nurse, essentially.
Yeah, well, I agree, but it's also an Ash Can game.
Yeah, so I agree. Yeah, so there's a lot of potential.
It was designed with the idea that there was going to be more added later. Yeah. Whether or not there actually is or not, I don't know. I guess I should probably look into it. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Anyway, need to look into that.
Let's see. So Velvet Glove?
Did not run that. I read through it, though. I had high intentions. I don't know what happened.
Right.
I can't account for my time.
Play more of Kyle's games.
Did we do that? I mean, he ran another one. I can't keep track of what was this year and what was last year. The Nutcracker one was definitely the year before because it's the Christmas special. Right. And we ran it like...
Shadows over Soul was me, and I did not do that. And that's actually... We're going to talk about it a little bit later. Zelda.
Oh, that doesn't happen either. But I do have a co-conspirator on board now. Right on. Maybe even two, now that Isaiah is really digging this Breath of the Wild thing. I might be able to sucker him too, but Kalen is all about it.
Yeah, he has a Zelda problem, you might say. So Through the Breach was on the list, and I did not get that one done, which is kind of a sad because I do like that game quite a bit. Tales from the Loop.
Yeah, I ran that at the game store even.
Follow. I don't think that one happened.
Did we do that one? We did. We didn't do... That's another microscope game, right? We didn't do that one. We did... I get the three of them confused.
Microscope Explorer.
No. I mean, yes, but no. One particular version of it. I can't think of the one right now. The one with the object. Legend? Is it Legend? No. I don't know. But it's contained within Microscope Explorer.
Yeah, book. Yeah.
But no, we haven't done Follow yet.
Veins of the Earth, which is a yes. Dread, which is a yes.
Dread on the Fly.
Bluebeard's Bride. Times. Yes.
To do that a couple more times as well.
Itchers B. Yes. The White Box, which we did not get. We have not done anything with. And I was thinking about that, and I would definitely like to get something going on with that. Let's see here. Yellow King. Yes. Signs and Sigils hasn't came out yet. Yeah. Involving Eldritch Cockmore. Yes. That's a big yes.
Thank you in large part to Simon's character from Hot Springs Island.
Right.
Yeah.
Wraith 20.
Isn't that where still thinking about Eldritch Cock. Isn't that where the, what do they call it? The black...
the black goat spell that he has?
No. The court one,
Oh, but We Are the Black Wizards.
Yes, We Are the Black Wizards.
That is
an Eldritch Cock, right?
Yes.
So fun.
Yes, it is. Definitely is. Let's see here. Night Witch's Damage Chart. That's a yes. Poison Table.
Oh, I haven't used that again. Shame. I did start all of that, and I have pictures and everything.
Right. Indie RPG Days, which...
Nailed it.
Was so successful that we sort of handed that off, actually. Props at the table. So there were two games that I know of that I did that with, where it was both for the Yellow King and for the Tom Riddle Chamber of Secrets bubblegum shoe game that I ran. And I liked that game. It was fun. Troubadours.
Keys.
Huh?
Oh, you just move right along. Don't even ask me about nothing. Jeez.
Did you?
It's a super interesting podcast list. Thanks.
No, I guess you did the Keys from Bluebeard, didn't you?
Yeah, I was going to say that.
Well, I heard you say Keys. Yeah.
Bluebeard's Bride.
Man, whoever got those for you were awesome.
Yeah. We've also played in some games like Invisible Sun that just come with a weird amount of props.
Yeah, a lot of stuff there.
Which I make a point to use just because they're fun. I was like, cards, let's flip them over. Now. Right now, first game, doing the thing. Yeah. And then I don't know if using Zombicide tiles for the ward counts as a prop, but it certainly made my map
sort of like
life
battle
easier.
Map. Yeah. I think it's kind of like halfway maybe, but I don't know. And
I did have the Pimp Mobile drop off the guy who was unresponsive, though.
Any other props you think of that we did?
A year is a long time.
I know.
My goodness. I mean, not offhand, no.
No, none that were terribly super memorable, I guess. We did get last year we did get the Hammer and Sickle dice for Night Witches. Yeah. Although there's not props, it's just wicked cool.
All the printouts and pictures and stuff for that.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. Troubadours, which is a big yes. I ran that and started to put things together significantly more. I'm going to run that at HoosierCon again, I think. And it's came together pretty well. I think I've got the majority part of something I'm going to put up on the Patreon, which is besides the play materials, some kind of like a first draft, basically. So that's came together well. 10 Candles was a yes. Vampire: The Eternal Struggle, it's a fat no. We played it just a touch and then kind of, that's the card game.
Oh.
Because they reprinted it again and we talked about that, how it was coming back out.
I didn't know that was what it was called.
Yeah.
I just call it Vampire Card Game.
Yep.
There's too many iterations of Vampire. I need people to like narrow down what sort of media we're talking about.
Right. Cthulhu Confidential, which is the Gumshoe 1-to-1. Sadly, I just didn't make that happen, but that's partly because you school and everything else last year. So I think that's going to be something I'm going to try and tackle this year. So Mountain Witch, which didn't happen yet.
That didn't happen and isn't going to happen.
Right.
Because a-holes.
Yeah.
That's why. But I digress.
Just a giant list of LOTFP adventures, which I got through some of them, but not a whole lot. So I would say that, I mean, I'm looking at all these check marks here and I feel
you
like...
should have done a scoreboard tally.
Well, I would say that we're definitely over half. Dogs in the Vineyard, yes. Terraria. It's the game you're running with Z.
Yeah, we didn't do that again. It died.
Monster Hunters didn't come out yet. So I think we're probably 70%. I'm looking at this. So not bad. Not bad.
Solid C. C average. C's get degrees.
True that. Unless you're in a like medicine program and like cool story.
Yeah. Like you fail. C is failing. Have some anxiety.
True story. So do you just want to go back and forth with some games and things we want to do for 2020?
Yeah.
Do you want me to start?
Probably.
Okay. Well, I got a couple easy ones to knock out just real quick because we already kind of mentioned them. One is Hot Springs Island. I want to keep going with that. In that game, we had some characters that wanted to leave the island, so they did. So two of the 6 have left the group, but they're probably going to return. They were sort of like scientist characters, and they're going to take their discoveries back and then sort of like catalog them and then come back to the island. So I think that's actually kind of a cool way to have characters leave and then come back if they wanted to, you know. I think it kind of works well. So
can I make one of my goals? Oh, this is a terrible idea because I have to do it. I mean, I don't have to. Obviously, I have unaccomplished goals, but don't you think it would be kind of neat if there was like a science experiment pages or like notebook, like composition notebook that went around with our version of the Hot Springs Island book? Like, hey, this is what I collected. These are experiments that I conducted, completely fake and made up experiments, and this is what I learned. That
would be wicked cool.
Catalog data would be wicked cool. I don't know that I can commit to that. So it's a semi goal. I'm making it a side goal.
As a semi goal, side
goal.
note,
side goal.
Right on. So along with Hot Springs Island is Night Witches. Actually, I have 2 full sessions that are still in the can to edit. So we'll circle back around to how all that kind of stuff works and where that's going to go in the future. But I really want to get back to getting those put out and released out. We've sort of had almost broken into 2 seasons almost because of where it sort of stops and then picks back up with the episodes that we have recorded. And then apparently we're doing a whole lot more recording that I really wasn't aware of. But that's all good. And it'll be a good time. We'll see how that goes.
You like surprises. It's all good.
I still have in this stack of things here is Yellow King, and that's still happening and good to go. Yes, Yellow King Paris. Ooh. Nice. So the books finally came, and they are really, really cool. And I got to say, when mine, just a quick note for Pelgrane, mine got shipped here, and I don't know if the box got dropped or got bumped or how it happened, but the slipcase and GM screen that goes around the books, which is wicked cool, mine got damaged. So I emailed them and said, hey, my box got bumped or whatever it is. How do I, who do I need to talk to order another one? And so they're just shipping me one free to me. So big thank you and shout out to Pelgrane Press for some awesome customer service and taking care of that because they didn't have to do that. I didn't even ask for it. And they just sort of volunteered it up. So as always, we love Pelgrane. So surprise, surprise. All right. So that's all the ones just to go through real quick. So do you just want me to do the next one or do you have something?
I have something sort of, I mean, it's kind of like a broad topic under which you may have some specifics. I don't know. But it is zines and setting books.
To make them?
To run them.
Oh, okay.
So we have a lot of zines. We have a lot of, what do you call them, splat books? I don't really know the terminology. I'm wildly unqualified for this job.
a splat book would be kind of like the fighter's book or whatever. But like if you're talking about like the small settings that we have,
like scenario books.
Yeah.
Is that what they're called?
I get
know.
adventure scenario
modules, adventure modules. That's what they're called, isn't it?
Kind of, because like some of them don't fit into a good category because it's like a micro setting almost. Like it's not a full on setting book, but there's enough there to where it's like a small miniature setting. You know what I'm saying? So
basically, I want to look at all of our books that contain less than 100 pages, preferably less than 50, and run as many of those as possible.
Okay, right on. Right on. I see what you're
Small
saying.
material.
Right on. Easily doable.
Oh, is it?
So since you mentioned zines, I'm going to go with a couple that I have here. So I mentioned Shadows Over Soul last year, and I never got to it, but I really want to run some Expanse.
That, sir, is not 100 pages or less.
No, this is not. But Mothership is.
Yes,
Mothership
is.
I want to run an Expanse style game, and I'm not sure which of these two I want to use.
So your goal is sci-fi.
Yeah, I guess like hard sci-fi though, like Expanse stuff, you know. So I'm just not sure which of these two I want to use. I'm very familiar with Mothership, but as I said last year, Shadows of Our Soul uses cards, and I'm curious to take it for a spin. And the people that produce this game, which is Tab Creation, sent this as a review copy to us, and I told them it'd be a while, and that we don't review games that we don't have a good feel for. So it'd take us a little while to get a feel for it, but so I want to get it to the table and see how it plays. Because it's got cards, which is just something that I always find intriguing anyway.
You and your cards.
I think it's cool as a randomizer. I think they're wicked fun to use. So yeah, I'm in a weird sci-fi kind of a thing that I'm feeling a little bit. So I'm not sure how or why, but yeah, it's a thing. So
awesome. No, but I see you have some Ashcan games there, and I feel like those definitely solidly fit into what I was talking about with zines and small books.
So I have one zine or one Ashcan game here, which is Passing, which is kind of a weird 1950s game where you play a family of aliens who are living on the planet trying to stay hidden. And I'm kind of curious about it and was going to dig into that and see and want to get this to the table and see what it's like. So I'm just curious.
Cool.
So
I'm putting Velvet Glove back on my list. And
I figured you would.
The circus one looks interesting as well. I'd like to delve into that. And I have had a request to run Ward again already. So that could be a thing. And that one is just so easy for me. Like, it's a zero prep. I've spent
effort.
8 years prepping for that game. Like, I can just drop whatever right now.
Yeah. Well, that's part of my thing
I got
with
mad
it.
plot bombs.
It's part of my thing with it is it's like, so much of this drama.
It's kind of fun, though. It's kind of fun to delve in there a little.
It is kind of.
Just a little tip.
But then at the same
in.
time, it's not. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I'm just like, oh, God. You know what I mean? Because I worked very hard to stay out of all that kind of crap at work. So, And
then you get like, does that actually happen? And like, names and things have been changed for
right.
this protection of people. Yes.
Right.
100%. But yeah, so those Ashcan games. And then I didn't mention any specific zines, but Casket Land, I know I want to give a shot. I would like to look into Demon Collective a little bit and get that going on.
What about the Girl Underground one?
I didn't really look at that much when it came out. It definitely sounds interesting.
After looking at that one, I think it might be something. I really was intrigued by it when I saw it, and then after seeing it, just like Bluebeard, I think I could probably do it, but it's not exactly my voice. It's the stories that I like, but I don't know that it's exactly my voice. So I think it might be one that would fit better in your storytelling wheelhouse than mine. So you should check it out.
So I should read.
It's definitely less than 100 pages as well. So.
Criteria met.
Right. All right, so I guess along those small games and books, although they're not a zine, I have Call of Cthulhu here. So I found these at Half Price Books just randomly because I have a Half Price Books problem. And they're just silly and fun, and I think it would be fun to do both with our kids, but also I think it could be fun to do with our regular gaming group because it has some cool potential. So yeah, Cthulhu by Joel Sparks.
I feel like I'm putting things back on the list, but I'm putting Legend of Zelda back on the list because I did back burner it, but it has been a constant nagging thing at the back of my mind, and it just definitely needs to happen. Mm-hmm. And then we got a Nintendo Switch for St. Nick's Day, and I've been playing Zelda Breath of the Wild in this last week, and yeah. It's so good.
It's a good game.
It's just so solid.
I have to say that I haven't played a video game for more than a week in a long, long time. I shouldn't say that. A video game for more than a week that wasn't something that I already played a long, long time ago, like on the NES Classic or something, because I played the original Zelda quite a bit.
It's just the right mesh of open exploration and like goal achievement.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Well, if you get frustrated on something, cool, I'm just going to go look around over here.
Yeah, I'm going to run around. The world is still beautiful, and there's so much cool stuff here. Right. So you could just stumble on something that's accidentally awesome. It's just like, walking around the original Zelda, and you're like, I'm just going to blow up walls and see what happens. Like, do.
So my next one is Miseries and Misfortune by Luke Crane, which was supposed to be a zine, but as you can see, coming in at a hefty 210 pages is not a zine.
Does not meet my criteria, sir.
So it's interesting, though. It's a very focused game in that it takes place in Paris, France, in a very specific time period. Like, it's a very narrow kind of a thing. But mechanically, I think it's very intriguing because it's kind of like a smash up of Burning Wheel and some OSR style stuff. So I think there's some really cool things to mine and ideas to mine in here. And I want to get at the table and see. It's 1648 France, so it's like right at the end of the 30 Years' War. It's just a terrible, terrible time in Europe, basically. So amazing and awful, like most of the games that I like. So I have one to add to your list if you don't.
You can't add things to my
totally
list
can't
of
add
goals.
Things to your list.
But I do have one, and it is game with other people outside of our house.
Right. Well, no, we had that last year too.
I mean, yeah, and we've done a good job like gaming at the store, and then we've kind of reestablished some more regulars. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. Sometimes just waiting for people to travel here, and it's fun to go visit people you don't see as often and game with them, and maybe restart like a second regular gaming group now that we have more time and more weekend availability. And I guess I would like to throw under that umbrella too, going to another more different con this year. I think we can manage one other con for sure.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I agree.
We're close enough Midwest wise. There's things
options,
within reasonable driving distance that we could attend.
I agree.
So yeah,
I agree.
Gaming with strangers and old friends.
Right on. Along with that, I plan to go sit in and GM on some of the one-shot Saturdays that they sort of created off of our success from Indie RPG
They're working
days.
on finding people for those right now.
I saw that.
I kind of looked and I was like, well, I'll wait and see if anybody's planning on anything. But there was like, listen, I don't want to hate on systems, okay? But there was starting to be a turn where it was like, oh, well, one-shot Saturdays, I'm going to run.
Yeah.
Like my Pathfinder or my Call of Cthulhu or whatever. And I'm like, okay, I see what you got going on there.
Well, Call of Cthulhu I'd be okay with because that's still not D&D. I'm like,
so it's not large press, but it's not small press either.
I agree.
Everybody is firmly aware of its existence.
Right. It's a step in the right direction. That was what I'm getting at, in my opinion. So.
From what we were doing?
Away from D&D. I feel like Call of Cthulhu now is sort of like the segue for a lot of people that are Apocalypse World is the kind of the way to start the process into different games, basically, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So
maybe.
Right on. So speaking of terrible games, Malice is the next one on my list. And
what a segue.
So this is from Monkey Fun Studios. And my favorite thing about this book is if you have the binding, it says Monkey Fun Studios, a town called Malice. And I just think it's kind of a cool contradiction of terms. Kind of like
Sesame Street. Yeah. One's in white and one's in black. Yeah. Like, one of these things is not like the other.
Yep. So, it's a story game of Nordic horror, is what it says on the front. And it's basically sort of like there's a small town and there's some kind of hidden danger or darkness that's going to follow you at every step, and you play the different characters in the city, sort of like Growth Dragon Tattoo or Broadchurch, or there's several different examples I use. So I'm super excited to try and do this, and it works kind of like Fiasco in that I don't believe there's a GM for this. So it's a GM-less game. Yeah. And it's sort of like a combination of Powered by the Apocalypse and Fiasco. In the way that there's playbooks and it's 2d6, and then there's relationships that you define in a similar way that you do in Fiasco. So I really want to get this one to the table and give it a shot because I think it's going to be...
Have you read it all yet?
The vast majority of it, yes. I would not say that I'm ready to run it like this weekend, but if you said, hey, in 2 weeks we're going to run this game, I could be ready to go.
Will it ruin anything if I also read it?
No, not at all.
Okay. I don't know if there's any like pre-made scenarios or anything.
No.
There, so.
Well, there's a few, but like it's sort of like how Fiasco has some pre-made stuff.
Just like don't read the back.
No. Like there's some general things of like
or
what's
just like
happening.
Plot points, and not really like spoilers.
Yeah, and then you kind of like I believe it's you're discovering it as you go along. So if I remember correctly, now I've read so many games since then because I haven't read this actual book. I got the PDF a long time ago when they first got the Kickstarter done, and then production and all that kind of stuff. So I have the book. Not even finally, it didn't even take a long time, but the book is here now, and I'm excited to do it and have some terrible fun.
What I'm curious now, what your goal for me was.
Tales from the Flood.
Oh, that's a good goal. Yeah. Okay.
So I
mission accepted.
You one of your goals for last year was Tales from the Loop, which was an awesome game.
So pretty.
And you had a good time running it, and I had a good time playing in it. And I thought, how awesome would it be to take my same character from Tales from the Loop and move him into from like
so
weird,
this is a purely selfish endeavor.
weird tween character in the 80s into angsty teenager in the 90s, and I thought that would be fun.
What you know about that?
All of it. But I also thought it would be cool because of the previous experience that the character had and that kind of stuff in the game before and the weirdness and stuff. So I thought it would be kind of a cool thing to do. Whether or not everybody else kept their characters was, I kind of could go either way on. But I thought it would be fun to take that same character forward because I'm reasonably certain that if I did, that character's background could slot into any character that's in the Tales from the Flood. Do you know what I'm saying? So,
yeah,
I thought it would be fun. So,
I really haven't even properly looked at that book. Like I bought it at Gen Con. I even got the screen and I got the dice. They're sitting in my dice bag every time I open it, staring at me like, why haven't you done this yet? That's when haunting dice.
That's what they say. So,
just so you know.
One of the things that I thought was interesting about it is that when you're going from, because I know you don't like giant gaming books, and I am the same way now as time has gone by.
But there's no like big system shift.
That's exactly where I was going, is so that,
and also there's lots of pretty pictures,
right? So like the system aspects of it, there might be some small differences, but you can just sort of like skim it and be like, okay, here's the differences in the mechanics and whatever, and then we move on from it. It's like you can die in this one or whatever, I think, and so there might be some subtle changes, but you don't have to like really dig deep into that part of the book. So there's probably a good quarter of it you can just skim through.
At least the way that Tales from the Loop was written anyway is very much, this is not meant to be insulting, but it's not written at a high reading level.
Right.
Because it's very easy to read. Like a kid could pick up that book and read it and be fine with it.
Well, it's sort of like Fate is very conversational in how you read the rules, and I think it makes it.
It's not highbrow. You know what I mean?
It's easier to read.
It's accessible. It's interesting.
Yeah, it makes just
bits of it are written like in a story-like quality.
Like the very first 7th Sea book, I always liked because the players and the GM guy when I first got them, because they were 2 big serious books, right? But they had jokes in them and they were funny, and it kind of was like leaned into itself a little bit, and it was.
Well, it's this kind of. There's a lot of books, like role playing books like that I like. Now that I think about it, like the ones that I've actually read all the way through, like Bedlam Hall. So there's just asides that are negative and weird and hilarious.
Right. Yeah.
And so I read the whole thing cover to cover because it was fun.
Right. Yeah. It makes a big difference. It really does. So, all right. So my next one is Dust Adventures. The storyline of Dust continues to churn on, and they've introduced mythos stuff to it, and I really like it, and it's just wicked cool and fun, and Diesel Punk is awesome. But along with this comes my struggle between Dust Adventures and Genesis, because at some level I feel very similar about the two, and the way I kind of like to run them is very similar in that like you're playing soldiers in this continued World War II scenario. So it's like sort of like halfway post-apocalyptic as it is, and I feel like that's close to how the Genesis is. So I'm not sure. It's not. It is, but it's not. Like the challenges and that kind of stuff are like pretty far apart because of the monsters and that kind of stuff. But like I feel like thematically when I run them,
seems silly because there's mutated gorillas and Cthulhu mythos there now, but like dust just seems more real than the Genesis.
Than alien fungus that mutates everything. So like I just in my
I realize I'm splitting hairs at some point, but
well, I realize like the aesthetics of the games are very different, but the storytelling voice where those games come from, for me, come from a similar place is where they start off at. So I think creatively, I'll either have to do one or do them far apart.
I guess Genesis to me always felt a little bit more like Dark Heresy.
Mm-hmm. I can see that. I just
it's post-apocalyptic pessimism,
right? Well, but I felt like,
and there's a supreme order to a certain extent as well.
Yeah. Well, the other thing with the Genesis though is to bring it closer to dust and away from Dark Heresy. Is that I wanted? It's in my mind, it's cool because it's a little more grounded and rooted on the earth. Whereas it has. I agree with it has a very similar Dark Heresy feel to it, kind of, but it's a little more grounded.
In that it's literally on the ground.
Well, it's on Earth. It's like in Europe or whatever, or Africa.
It's Earth, but is it?
Kind of. So
it's an alien world, really. It belongs to the fungus. The most obvious of goals is to complete the 3 witches scene. Mm-hmm. Right. I have the same problem everybody else has, though, right? Like I'm super motivated, and then you're like, "Yeah, we're gonna do this thing," and I'm like, but like work.
So what I have found, and maybe
self-motivation is apparently not my thing.
We'll circle back around to that one because I have some things about for like larger podcast stuff. So let's just for right now we'll just keep it down to the actual table, our table. So
I'm putting it on the goal list though.
Okay.
3 Sisters zine, that's happening.
Mm-hmm. All right. So you have anything else for our table specifically? Because I only have a couple more, and then we can move on to like larger podcast stuff.
To run at our table?
Yeah, or convention stuff.
I didn't know this was like
either way
split up
you're
into
good.
sections.
You're good.
I'm not all really over the place.
I was gonna go like the way I was kind of thinking about sectioning it out was like our actual gaming stuff, which would include going to conventions and that kind of stuff, and then like podcast and stuff like that. So I'll go ahead and finish out here real quick. So I have Berlin, the Wicked City, the Call of Cthulhu book out, and the Weimar era I've raved and raved about. I just think it's a really, really intriguing time period in Berlin because of the way things are happening and just the way the city is. I think it's really, really cool. I think it also lends itself really well to Haster. And I already mentioned the Yellow King RPG. And so I've sort of began building out this Gelbes Berlin, basically Yellow Berlin, as like a little micro setting for the Weimar era, but specifically only involving Haster. And it's been pretty fun. And the one game that we've ran with it so far went amazingly well. And it was super exciting. I had a good time with that. And I'm looking to run a second and maybe even a third game and see what happens with it. And we'll go from there. So I'm super excited for this because I think it's really, really cool. And it's fun. And it's an amazing time period. And it has a sort of like a cool mystique that goes along with it. It's like spooky and not spooky, like ethereal in a way. Do you know what I mean? It's like this really weird kind of time period. So
it's, and I don't ever use this word for anything, but it's chic.
Yeah. I was going to say ethereal. Like, it's
both, I just mean like the style of the era. I don't know, like the 20s and that weird like Art Deco sort of. I don't know.
So good.
Like is that an 80s term? I don't know anything about art.
No,
it looks like Art Deco to me.
Art Deco, like that's that.
Was
that
it like in the 20s and then comes back in the 80s?
Yeah, kind of. But like there's a lot of German Art Deco stuff
it's like
that
chic
comes
Art
out
Deco, not like cringy Art Deco.
Right. When it was real and original.
Nothing in the 80s is okay.
Oh, there's lots of things that are okay.
It's like, all bad. It's so bad.
Like Wham and
not okay.
So super excited
hair.
Because this
80s
has been
dude hair is pretty solid. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, maybe if you're George Michael, but that's about it. Dee Snider.
I mean, okay, so it's a little messy, but I feel like you just kind of want to grab onto it.
All right, we're just moving right along because it's terrible. It's a losing battle on that one. Okay. Anyway. But so lots of fun with Berlin, and then good inspiration out there with Babylon Berlin and all kinds of stuff. So it's been a lot of fun to bust that one out and run it and have a good time. So it was one of the more memorable gaming experiences that I had from last year. It was a really, really good time. Plus it was a HoosierCon, or not HoosierCon, at HillCon. So what's not to like?
It is a HoosierCon, not the HoosierCon.
True. All right. My last one I have here is Silent Titans. It's not just Silent Titans, but this is the big one that I want to get to the table. But all of the various, most of them are Lamentations products, but there's Tomb of the Black Sands and Swamp Fever and a bunch of other small adventures that I have that I want to get to the table. But specifically Silent Titans, because I think it's a really, really cool, just amazing book that's nothing else like it. Do you know what I mean? Like,
it looks really awesome, and I find the character sheets very intriguing.
Yeah.
Less is more. I like
So,
it.
all right. Do you have any other games to mention real quick that you would like to run or get to our table?
Sure that I've talked about things, but my mind is just like a glorious blank. I'm trying to remember what I even purchased at Gen Con, and I cannot come up with anything other than Tales from the Flood, which really you mentioned. I didn't even come up with that, so I don't know.
So I've got one other thing that doesn't exactly relate to the actual games at the table, but in the past year, I have found a bunch of like storytelling books and
Oh my God.
Hold on to it. Storytelling books, and the most recent one is this creating narrative in tabletop RPGs, which is some kind of PhD candidate's thesis, basically, is what it looks like. And
well, you put it that way, it sounds fascinating.
well, it's going to be pretty dense, but I have several books that are more focused towards story stuff, but they're not written. They're more like techniques and the way narrative is built and that kind of stuff. And I've flipped through a lot of them and read the majority of them, sort of like small bits at a time. But I would really like this year to sort of dig into them a little more and actually read them, you know.
What kind of PhDs are people getting that this is a relevant thesis topic?
So it's she's rhetoric and writing, I believe.
I think I'm doing life wrong.
Well, the problem is, though, you know, you either teach or you write, and writing's not guaranteed.
I don't think that's a thing that people say.
Oh, yeah, they do.
I don't know about that. I'm not convinced.
So either way, but I'm intrigued by it, and I think there's a lot to gain and to learn and to sort of get a sharper and better understanding as to why things work the way they do sometimes in narrative and whatnot. So translation and an actually measurable goal. You just want to read that book? You want to read set number of books about gaming? The ones that I have here, I think I probably have 5 different ones that are all focused around either storycraft or storytelling or the way narrative is constructed. So, because what's been hard for me, and if anybody has any recommendations for books, I'd be happy to have them and share them out there to everyone else, is that it's easy to find books on like writing and story construction, but that's not the same as storytelling. So I spent some time trying to find books on like oration or whatever, and I haven't had the best time at it. It's been kind of difficult. So I found some reprints of books that were actually older that were about like oration and storytelling and how to tell an actual, like, to be a storyteller, you know, like around in like an oral history tradition. And so that's the kind of stuff that I'm trying to dig into more. So because some of it, like I have a couple that are more like technical writing stuff, which has its value, but it just doesn't. It's hard to apply some of it sometimes because you don't control all the moving pieces. Right. You know what I'm saying? So while I think there's value in reading them, I just think that it's not exactly what I'm looking for. Yeah, because I have this one here. This is Orson Scott Card. He wrote one about science fiction and fantasy. This is actually that one about storytelling, like in an oratory sense. You know, so it's an old timey one that's been reprinted. So. Right. So what was your aha moment that you just had? I knew that I was forgetting something and I could not remember it for the life of me. So anyway, the other thing that I'm planning on reading and running is the Esoterists. Oh, yeah. I was like, there's something that I am reading out. Yeah. Yeah. So that is the goal, Esoterists. And it's going to be good. Right on. It's on my shelf. I have a small shelf right now of things that I'm supposed to be reading and running. I still have Skullduggery on there too. I feel like that can go in my zines and settings one. I feel like it's definitely less than 100 pages. I was looking forward to that. I think that's going to be a good time. So I have one, actually 2 quick ones. Root as a quick start we have, because we backed the Kickstarter for the RPG, had a lot of fun. Would like to get that to the table some more with our kids. It was a lot of fun, because I think there's some cool things. And I think this is something I want to talk about as a full episode, but about like taking contemporary problems or ethical, political issues and how you can find ways to spin those up in stories where you don't really realize it. And it was very compelling to see our kids sort of go through like a weapon of mass destruction debate, you know what I mean, without realizing they were having it. Do you know what I'm saying? With a battle axopult. It was a lot of fun. And I think it's a cool way to have those kind of discussions in a cool, non-confrontational kind of a way. Do you know what I'm saying? You know, and it was just fun to do. And then my blasphemy thing that I'm about to say is that I actually kind of want to run a Fate Accelerated Star Wars game. So I
don't know.
Yeah, me either.
I don't know if I can participate in that.
So I have a couple of things in mind.
Your goal was actually to find the one nerd line that I have not and will not cross, and just make that your goal for the year. Well,
there's some changes and some things that I want to do to it to make it so where it isn't quite so heroic, and some changes to dark side, light side stuff that I had some ideas for that I think might be fun.
I like how you sort of pitched that like as if I had ever played Star Wars before.
Well, but you know about the dark side and the light side.
Yeah, no, I meant the first part, but okay.
But like, well, no, you just know the story, like the. So either way, I don't know. I had some cool ideas about some things, and going and seeing the last Star Wars and actually being satisfied with it.
It was so good.
I was like, you know,
I'm still happy about it. It was
maybe
good.
I agree. Maybe I should try and actually run a Star Wars game. But Star Wars, like I was going to get to, is that Fate is very heroic and like you're just hyper competent in everything you do, right?
Right.
Whereas Star Wars, yes, they succeed at the end, but there's a large amount of struggle that goes on, and it's hard to accomplish that struggle sometimes with Fate. So I was thinking about some small changes to it to where it would make it a little bit harder, but would still capture the Star Wars mojo, if you will. So we'll see. What?
But don't you think you could use the 7C system?
The second edition one?
Mm-hmm.
Probably, but I think I would have to make a whole list. My thought is this, and this is maybe a big digression or whatever. With Fate, doing the Force powers is easy because it's a largely narrative game, right? So it's like, okay, so in the same way with like the Harry Potter game, Dresden Files, you just use your magic and you make the roll. If you want to do a big effect, then it's a little bit more involved, right? So that was why I kind of leaned towards the Fate Accelerated, because I can just do it that way and it'll be much more heavy lifting on my end to make Force stuff work right.
But there is magic in 7C.
Right, but it's not geared towards the Force.
And there's sword fighting schools.
Right. I don't know that I want to do a bunch of Jedi stuff, though. That's the whole thing. So I'm not exactly sure.
Then why wouldn't you even play this game?
I'm not exactly sure which way I want to go. Because I was like, I really like Rogue One, and I like the way that one guy.
Yeah, that was really good.
So I don't know. So there's a lot of questions.
Lightsabers. How do you even have a Star Wars game without them? How do you know you're playing Star Wars if there aren't any lightsabers?
Rogue One.
Surely there was a lightsaber in there somewhere. No. Yeah. Doesn't the
Well, Vader has one.
Doesn't the Asian guy have one?
No, the blind guy. But no, he doesn't have one.
Yeah. No.
There are no Jedi in that movie. There's Vader at the end. You know,
not a
that's
Jedi.
How you know you're in Star Wars. Vader.
Okay, fair. Either there's lightsabers or Darth Vader kills you all.
Right. Done. Okay. Anyway. All right. So it's a lot of goals for our gaming table, but we always
only
sort
have
of do
6, and most of them are not actually related to our gaming table.
So unrelated to our gaming table, although sort of related to our gaming table, I recently just posted on the Patreon this ridiculous thing that I have that's called Lamentations of the Burning Yuhas 5th edition core. Because if you listen to pre-shows, can tell that I'm terrible at naming things. So I thought, why not just mash up all of the pieces that I have mashed together to make this? So it's basically built on the sort of the foundation of Lamentations of the Flame Princess as an OSR game, and brings in some Burning Wheel and some 5th edition and some Fate elements to it. We use it for our Hot Springs game, and it went really, really well. And I presented the Alchemist class to someone online that asked about it. been very happy with it. And I think it was something that I was just going to kind of like let go for a little while. And then I realized, no, I put a little bit of work into this and it's like halfway there. I think it could be really fun to sort of finish it out. And so it's up on our Patreon. There's the core, which is like the sort of the basic rules, and then the grimoire, which is like the spellcasting stuff. But none of it's a finished product yet, and it's really just sort of a playtest thing. But they're very, very small. There's like chat books, like 40 pages, maybe. Not even. Let's see, 30. And that's with the style guide. So, but yeah, I want to finish that up and build it out and have some fun with it, because I think it might be what I go to run our sort of D&D style stuff from here on out, because it's pretty close to Lamentations, but it adds the bits and pieces of things, other games that I like that aren't in LOTFP.
I had fun helping you come up with ideas for that.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it a lot.
I would like to revisit the fighter class some more.
I agree. I think that's an episode we'll talk about ways to spice up, fighter, because it is a little flat, I guess, sometimes. So I would like to make it something a little more than what it is, because it is a little dull. But,
So podcast related, I am going to finish the Three Sisters zine. Yeah. That's it. It's going to happen. It's happening.
Right on. Have you thought about running that at HoosierCon?
I had not thought about it at all. I'm thinking about it now.
It could be fun.
I thought about running something at HoosierCon, and then I was like, I don't know what I would run. And then also, I get nervous for no really good reason. Getting nervous just thinking about it now, but
I do too. Although
I thought it went really well when I ran it at our home table the other way.
Right.
And I think it makes the most sense to make it a zine to run it that way, because it's the easiest way to wrap your mind around it. I kind of just want to put in there basically as an aside, like, oh, hey, you could also do it this way.
Right.
And I can tell you from experience, it's a lot of fun. In fact, it's probably more fun, but it is more difficult.
Mm-hmm. It's a much bigger challenge.
Yeah. And not really set up well for a one-shot necessarily. Right. Also, on a side note, I wrote it down here next to the Poison Chat book, but it also fits in with this. I told you I was listening to that the weirdest thing I learned last week thing. Anyways, They were talking about tomatoes and how they're related to
hemlock
and the Nightshade family and Mandrake and all of that. And they said that in the Latin, it gets its name from, and it means wolf peach. And it has something to do with like witches and werewolves. And I got to look into it more, but just as an aside, wolf peach. That's kind of a sweet name, isn't it?
Huh, interesting. Because I think the tomatoes are native to the U.S. They didn't have them in Europe until after they had came here. And then when the settlers first came here,
those like they were in Spain and
right, but they brought them back from here, didn't they?
Europe. So I don't think so.
Because you got to figure they came here in like 1500 basically.
Maybe.
So I don't know. It was interesting because they were talking about how like the settlers here wouldn't eat them, but the Indians knew that they could, because they've been living here forever, and it's because it looked like deadly nightshade that they didn't want to eat them. Mm-hmm. So I have to see and figure out if I can't figure out where I listened to that on a podcast somewhere. So
they talk about all of that in this episode too.
Interesting.
Kind of some of that and a smattering of other things, but yeah, it's worth a listen. I have to go back again to get like the specifics about it, but I was driving at the time, so right. I was like, I wanted to like pause it and go back and like write it down, but I was occupied with the driving. So.
Yeah, I hear you. So along those same lines with the zine, I have the isometric map laid into the Hastings party, and I just have to add a few details to it, but largely it is finished up and will be going to print and get uploaded to the Patreon. So that one will be done this month. It'll be done in January and be posted up there. And then I'll have it printed at the end of January and have all those mailed out to our Patreon backers if you start supporting at the appropriate level. And so along with that, I've had a lot of fun doing these two zines so far. Now the one is kind of like at the very final stages of production. And it has been a learning process, because it's both, hiring artists and doing the layout and the writing, sort of owning every piece of it. So it's been fun. It's been a challenge. It's been difficult. And it's interesting because it's sort of like, for me, doing it as like short sprints, right? This is the little 2 pages of the chat book that I'm going to write, something like it's like, just a couple hundred words or whatever. It's like, bam, I get those out, so it's like short sprints or whatever. So it's been fun to do, and I'm glad we're doing it, and we're going to keep doing it. I'm curious to see what our production cycle looks like this year. We're gonna try to stick to the quarterly thing. Actually, stick to it this year and see how it goes. Because I have a couple more ideas. I actually have more ideas than we do time, really, which is go figure. But so there's a lot of potential there. So I don't know. I don't want to go on about it too much because I don't really know what it's going to develop into or look like. But the goal is to meet the quarterly time schedule. We're just not sure how it's going to work because it is just like, a 1 or 2 person team that's sort of putting these together. So, but it's been a lot of fun and we're going to keep doing it and it's wicked cool. So looking forward to good things and maybe some more terrible things actually. So, I like bad stuff. It's great for
Speaking of
inspiration.
bad stuff, I am going to finish the poison chat book idea as well. Okay. So I think we can put that out as one of the quarterly zines as well. And it is actually, like most things that I do, at least partially started and in progress. So in theory, would not be that much work to finish.
Right on. Very cool.
And the thing I like about it is all the artwork is open source because I like the old-timey field guide sort of botany sketches. Are some of my favorites. So
right on. Very cool. Do you have any other podcast related stuff?
Yeah, I don't know. I liked all the different stuff that we did this year, as far as like interviews and actual plays and PhD theses.
Yeah.
That's really just one. It's not plural.
Weird thing to stumble into, but whatever.
So I don't know. I'm just, I don't really know that's a goal to get involved in something new and different, but it's been really interesting this year to see kind of where the journey has taken us. And I hope there's more.
I agree.
Interesting stuff like that coming up. So,
and it sounds like, kind of like a winding down speech, but it really isn't because it's been cool to sort of start and build something and then go out places and meet people that listen to us and, answering emails and questions about games and stuff. And it's been a lot of fun to interact with everyone because one of the things that in my mind when we set out with this whole project was I wanted to add to gaming. I wanted to actually do something and say that I added to gaming, which started with the podcast, then developed into the zines and then going and running games and exposing people to games and stuff. So I agree a whole lot with that. And I'm kind of curious because I would like to continue to grow and push things. And just see where things take us. So it's kind of like a weird, vague goal, but I've got a pretty good knack for seizing moments and making the best of them. So yeah, we'll see what happens. It should be a good time. So along with that, for those of you that have been listening for a while, stuff with us has changed quite a bit in the past year. So the release schedule kind of got a little wonky for a little while and whatnot with just our personal lives changing and whatnot. I've settled into my new job and Lacey has as well. So things for us are a lot more mellow.
Somewhat begrudgingly.
Yeah, a lot more mellow now and should be getting back to our normal sort of editing and release schedule. Along with that, so will Night Witches, getting that fired back up and edited again and all of that going forward. So yeah, just a lot of fun and looking forward to great games and a good year of gaming and conventions and. So big thank you to everyone out there who has supported us through the show by listening or emailing feedback, talking to people at conventions, running games at conventions, playing games at conventions, at indie RPG days, all over the place. And big shout out and thank you to all of our Patreon supporters because that has made all of this a lot easier to do on our end of things financially for supporting the podcast and paying for the hosting fees and all that kind of stuff. So big thank you out there to everyone that supports us, especially our Patreon supporters and all of that good stuff. So I think we'll wrap that one up here. So if you like what we do here at Just One More Fix, you can head over to Patreon. You can head over to patreon.com/JustOneMoreFix and support us there and help us grow and do more awesome stuff in the new year and join all of our awesome Patreon supporters like Tiziano Furlano, Hector Treelane, Alistair H., Timothy Barra, Simon McNair, Alan White, and the OG Todd Olson. I don't know. I just can't say enough thank yous to everyone for the past year. It's been a really, really good time. And we've really enjoyed everything that we do. And largely this has continued to grow because of all of you out there. So would love to hear some feedback from all of you out there. If you have any thoughts or topics that you would like us to address or anything like that, or just cool stories to share, drop us a line. You can hit me up, James at justonemorefix.com. You can hit us up on Twitter at JustOneMoreFix. You can head over to Facebook and join our Facebook group. All of the places we're out there for the most place, except for Instagram, because
I don't need one more social media platform to manage. So, but we're on all the places, and you can head over to Patreon and support us there, or our website, justformorefix.com, all that kind of great stuff. We're on DriveThru, we're on itch.io, all of the places that awesome and cool podcast and gaming stuff are found. We're also members of the Gunna Geek Network of shows, so you should head over to GunnaGeekNetwork.com and check out all the awesome podcasts over there. I think that'll do it for us this week, and we're looking forward to a great year of gaming in 2020, and hopefully we can connect with some of you listeners out there, and we will see you all next week.
Thanks for listening. This has been an episode of Just One More Fix. Music has been provided by Kevin MacLeod. You can find him at incompetech.com. You can support us at patreon.com/justonemorefix or follow us on Twitter at JustOneMoreFix.